This podcast is going to change your life. And I'm not kidding, and I'm not exaggerating. This will change your life if you follow it. It changed mine. No reason it shouldn't change yours. I am Caleb Jones, and this is Alpha Male 2.0. Freedom-focused lifestyle design for men. Your own location-independent Alpha 2.0 business that sets you free from your 9-to-5 job and your collapsing Western country. And dating multiple attractive women, that means 2 or more, long-term with no lying, cheating, or drama. The freest lifestyle available to the typical modern-day guy in the collapsing era in which we live. Today, I'm going to cover one of the most important concepts I have ever covered. It is difficult for me to think of a concept that is more important than this. There's probably a few of them, and I teach a few concepts that are pretty important, but this one is one of the biggest ones. Without this one, not much else works in your life. And before I get into details about what this is, you can see the title of the video or the podcast, Why Everything in Your Life is Your Fault. Everything in your life is your fault. I'm going to instead talk about the objections first. So usually what you do in a presentation like this is you make your point, and then this is what I typically do, you address the objections at the end. I'm going to address the objections up front because I know what they are. So like many other topics, I've been discussing this topic for a very long time. About 15 years online and maybe 15-ish years before that offline with people in my life and when I used to do public speaking and things like that. So I have really spent a lot of time debating this topic. And just like with things like the America collapsing and Trump can't fix it, or long-term monogamy not working, I know this topic well enough to know what the excuses and the bullshit objections are to preempt them. So I'm actually going to start with the objections. Then I'm going to go into detail about what this is and why it works and why it'll change your life and why it'll set you free. It says saying, no. Okay, first, I have talked about this, it's a point, not a concept. It's a point. Talked about this point many times. I've been online since 2009 talking to people about these topics and these concepts. And what I've said since 2009 is one of my quotes. If you use the bizarre exception to the rule as the basis of your argument, you don't have one. If you use the fraction of 1% exception to the rule as your main point to say someone is wrong, you just prove that other person correct. Moreover, when you use the bizarre exception to the rule as the basis of your argument, then this can be anything you're talking about. This could be any topic you think of, okay? When you use the exception, the bizarre exception to the rule as the basis of your argument saying, no, you're wrong, you don't hear how stupid you sound. You sound like a retard. I'm not kidding. You sound like a 9-year-old when you say this. I'll give you a real basic example. I say to you, white men are taller than Chinese men, which is a fact. That is not my opinion. That is fact. You can't say it's wrong. You respond, I know a Chinese guy who's 6'4", so you're a fucking idiot. Okay. You don't hear how stupid you sound when you say that. You met one Chinese guy who's 6'4", and therefore you're saying the statement I just made, white men are taller than Chinese men, is false and that I'm an idiot. When in fact, you sound like the idiot. The internet is full of comments and statements like this. When someone makes a point that is correct and someone uses the fraction of 1% to say, well, you don't hear how stupid you sound. So for example, when I say to you, everything in your life is your fault, here are some examples of real statements I've gotten from real human beings, both online and offline. Everything in your life is your fault. So someone online will leave a comment and say, oh, right, okay, so some guy breaks into your house in the middle of the night and rapes your daughter. So it was your daughter's fault? Okay, first of all, you don't hear how stupid you sound. What is the percentage probability that's going to happen? What is the percentage probability that someone's going to break into your home in the middle of the night and rape one of your daughters? Go ahead, give me the data. It's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of 1%, even if you live in a more dangerous country. So you are using the fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of 1% to prove your point. And in fact, when you do that, you have just proven my point. Make sense? One time, I'll give you a real life example. This was not online, this was offline. I was talking to a woman many years ago, and I mentioned this, everything in your life is your fault. And immediately, like this, she says, so little kids getting cancer, getting terminal cancer, it's their fault. It's little kids' fault. Okay. What percentage of little kids get terminal cancer? How many little kids do you know who have terminal cancer? How many kids have you even heard of who have terminal cancer? Go ahead and run the numbers. I think the actual figure is 0.004 of 1%. So once again, she was using the bizarre fraction of 1% exception to the rule to make her quote point. And by doing so, she made my point. When I say everything in your life is your fault, there are some of you who are going to have an overwhelming desire to put in the comments, or most people don't comment on videos, to think in your head, oh, right, so in this weird scenario, that is, so you're walking along and a fucking meteor hits you in the head, so it was your fault the meteor hit you in the head? What is the percentage probability a meteor is going to hit you? You don't realize how dumb you sound when you use the exception to the rule as your argument. When you use the exception, the bizarre exception rule, not the 40% exception rule, the bizarre exception rule, 1%, 2%, fraction 1%, you prove the other person's point. This happened a lot when I used to debate monogamy. I don't, as I've talked about many times, one of my core concepts is, and this is not my opinion, this is fact, long-term sexual monogamy does not work in the Western world. If you get monogamous with anyone in the Western world today, the odds are about 94% plus that eventually you will break up / get divorced and have sex with other people, which means it didn't work. The long-term, short-term is fine, long-term didn't work. Or one of you will cheat on the other person eventually, which means you're not monogamous anymore. So the monogamy failure rate is around 94%. Actually, it's a little higher than that, but that's, in general numbers. So if I say long-term monogamy doesn't work, and this used to happen all the time. Now, as I mentioned before, back in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, people would scream and yell at me and say, no, that's not true. Bullshit. It works fine. As long as you find the right person, and you're an asshole and you're just mad you got divorced, and all the usual bullshit excuses. Today, people don't argue with me because they see it everywhere. Like, yeah, they don't say, yes, Caleb, you're right, but they just get really quiet. What was really funny back then in 2009, 10, 11, 12, when I was saying long-term monogamy doesn't work, and people were screaming at me on the internet saying, that's not true. Yes, it does. It was always Americans. Americans say, if you find the right girl, if you find the right boy, if you find the right husband, if you marry the right person, if you screen and all this bullshit. And what was funny is during these conversations on forums or social media, the European men were really quiet. Because they knew European men were ahead of the curve on this. But it was the American men, oh, bullshit, yes, you can. Because they're puritanical right-wing sourcing from America and its culture and all that good stuff. Anyway, what would happen back then when people would get upset with me when I said a fact, long-term sexual monogamy doesn't work in the Western world? Very often I would get, one of the answers I would get is, that's bullshit, what I just said, the exception rule. Caleb, that's bullshit. I know a guy who's been married 22 years. He's been married 22 years. He's happy. His wife is happy. They're still married. They never got divorced. They have sex. They're living a great life. So you're full of shit. You're wrong, bro. And I would say, okay, of all the men you know who are married, of all the monogamous couples you know and have ever known, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 monogamous couples, you know one who made it work. Thank you for proving my point. By putting out the bizarre exception rule, thinking you got me, you've actually proven my point for me. And then sometimes see people say, well, God damn it, okay, I know 2 or 3 more. Okay. Out of the 100+ married couples or monogamous couples you've known, you know 2 or 3 who've made it work. What does that tell you, psycho? When you use the exception to the rule to make your point, you've proven mine. So keep that in mind when I start talking about everything in your life is your fault. Some of you are going to want to come up with these really weird, bizarre bullshit scenarios that happen less than 1% of the time and use that as ammo to say, no, when in fact you've just proven my point. Be aware of this. Now, that's the first objection. Very common. Every time I say this, I get comments. Well, you've this, and they give some amazing, weird hypothetical scenario about some guy raping little girls or little kids getting cancer or meteorites hitting people's head. Okay. The next set of objections I get are the nihilists and the determinists. So nihilism means, I'm butchering this definition, but this is basically what it means. None of this matters. We have no free will. We're all fucked. Life sucks. There's nothing you can do about it. We have no agency. Okay. You can have a decision-making process. Determinists say that we have no free will. Well, Caleb, you dumbass, you don't understand what you're talking about. Didn't you read, what's his name? What's the atheist guy's name that wrote about we have no free will? Richard Dawkins. Caleb, didn't you read Richard Dawkins' book? Okay, we have no free will, bro. So everything, how can you say everything in life is our fault because we have no free will? Okay, I've talked about this. I've addressed this. You are not aware of, if we literally don't have free will, which is possible we don't. The science is pretty compelling about this. Maybe in terms of actual real free will, we don't have it. Possibly, I'm going to give you that. Are you aware of that? Because on a microcellular or atomic level, are you aware of the fact that you have no free will? No. Therefore, it is not relevant. I talk about the example of you playing World of Warcraft. I know it's a dated example, but if you play, I've just mentioned this in my blogs actually a little while ago. You're playing World of Warcraft. You're playing a game. You're in a group with 5 or 6 people. You're fighting the boss at the end. And one of the people in the group says, this is all bullshit. This isn't real. This is just ones and zeros. We can't control this environment. This is dumb. And he just stands there, and then the dragon kills all of you, and you all lose, and now you're pissed off at that guy. The fact that we may or may not have real free will at a molecular or subatomic or microcellular level has no effect on your day-to-day life. If you take a fork and you grab it and you stab it in your leg because you choose to do it, you're going to feel pain and you're going to bleed. If you keep stabbing yourself in the leg with a fork saying, I have no free will, you're just, once again, acting retarded. We live in a cause and effect universe, and this is the universe that we're in, like it or not. And as I've said in my blogs, unless you choose to off yourself right now, this is the game you've chosen to play. So if you don't, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube. If you don't off yourself right this second, you've chosen to play this game based on the rules we have, whether or not you like the rules. Which means in the game, in the construct in which we exist, everything in your life is your fault. It doesn't matter if you're a nihilist. It doesn't matter if you're a determinist or believe in determinism. It doesn't matter if you worship Richard Dawkins or Scott Adams and well, we don't have any free will. Yes. Yes, you do within the construct we exist. Everything in your life is your fault because everything you do is a result, or everything you have, I should say, is a result of past actions you've made and past decisions you've made. True or false? True. Right? We can get into a big philosophical discussion about this crap, but there you go. So, to review, because you're going to want to say this, using the microscopic exception of the rule to try to prove me wrong proves me right. Number 2, determinism, nihilism, free will is not relevant because this is the construct in which we exist. And if you go out and purposely do something stupid, if you go out in a freeway and stand in front of traffic and say, I have no free will, and get hit by a car, and then you're in the hospital all fucked up, and you say, well, this is what my fault, I don't have free will, you're literally behaving like an insane person. Do you understand? How does that help you in real life? How is that of value to you? How is it relevant to your day-to-day experience? I just did a blog post on my blogs last week about, is there a God? And I talked about it. You can read the blog if you want, calebjones.com/blog and alphamail20.com/blog. I have 2 of them. At the end of the article, I said, none of this shit's relevant. That's not relevant if there's a God or not. You have your life. We live in a universe of set laws. You can engage what they call right action and get positive results, or you can fart around and do nothing, or engage in wrong action and get negative results. By the way, those are kind of the 3 levels. You can engage in wrong action. You can, shoot a bunch of heroin and eat McDonald's every day, and right, that's wrong action. You can engage in right action. You can get 8 hours of sleep and exercise and start your own business and control your attitude, meditate. You can do those things. Or you can do nothing and just sit around on your ass and just go to your 9-to-5 job and go home and watch Netflix and not really not do anything. So in the neutral action and negative action, you're going to get negative results, period. And these are the results of decisions you've made. Okay. Next thing. Next big excuse or objection I'm going to get, and some of you are going to try to give this to me. Caleb, you don't understand. How can you possibly say it's my fault? My roommate stole $600 from me 2 months ago. Well, how the fuck is that my fault? I wasn't doing anything wrong. He stole it from me. It is your fault. The number of decisions you've made to lead up to that, for example, why did you move in with him? You could have moved in with someone else, for one. Number two, why do you have a roommate? Because I can't afford it. Why can't you afford it? Whose fault is that you can't afford it? Let me give you a real statistic from my life. I have never had a roommate my entire life. Well, it's different for your generation. Wait a second. When I was 18 years old, I moved out of my home when I was 18. Didn't have a roommate. In the middle of one of the worst recessions in United States history. It's a recession everyone's forgot about. It's in the early 1990s. It's called the outsourcing recession. Look it up on Wikipedia. It's the middle of a recession. And I've talked about how poor I was. I could barely afford to eat. I could barely afford to put gas in my car to get to work. It was a fucking nightmare for quite a while. But I made it work because I didn't want a fucking roommate. So I made the decision. I did whatever I could to not have a goddamn roommate. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a roommate. I'd rather you have a roommate than live at home with mommy and daddy. I've said this many times. But A, you're the one who doesn't make enough money, which is your choice, a result of your actions. You're the one who chose to have a roommate. You're the one who chose to have that roommate. You're the one who left your $600 cash out. Why didn't you put it in a safe and lock that shit with a lock with a code that he didn't have access to? There are so many decisions you made where that $600 your stupid roommate stole was your fault. As many of you know, many years ago, almost 20 years ago now, I got divorced from my first wife. That was 100% my fault. And if you notice, those of you who watch my content for a long time or read my blogs or whatever, you will notice, and if you think I'm wrong about this, go back and listen to my old podcasts, my old videos. Go back and watch. When I've talked about my ex-wife a few times, I've mentioned her a few times. Some of you guys ask about her sometimes. I have never said anything negative about her. Most guys, when they get divorced with their wives, are like, oh, that fucking bitch, that fucking cunt, she was a demon from hell, and she ruined my life. I've never said anything like that about my ex-wife, ever. Go back and check me. You don't believe it? Now, have I said things about her that were negative? Yes, but those were clinical, objective things about things she did wrong. And I've talked about things I did wrong in that marriage. But I've never disparaged her or blamed her or started calling her names or saying what a cunt or everything that almost all divorced men do with their ex-wives. And frankly, what women do to their ex-husbands. They just badmouth them and badmouth them and badmouth them. Why don't I ever say anything negative about my ex-wife? Because it was my fault. I married her. I didn't have to marry her. I could have married someone else, or I could have stayed single. I chose to marry her. So if I'm going to start calling her a bitch and a psycho and all that stuff, it makes me look bad because I'm the one who married her, which is exactly what I think whenever I hear anyone, and I hear this all the time in the United States. I don't hear it in Dubai because people don't get divorced in Dubai very much. But the United States, Western world, when people talk about their ex-wives and ex-girlfriends and ex-this, and, oh, she was a fucking bitch. Oh, he was a fucking asshole. Oh, he's an aunt. And I'm thinking, well, you married the asshole or you married that bitch. Why'd you marry such a bitch? You dumbass. Your fault. Everything in your life is your fault. My divorce was 100% my fault. 100%. The woman I dated after my divorce, okay, she knew a lot about these scenarios. And I would say this divorce was 100% my fault. And she's like, Caleb, how can you say that? Your ex-wife did this and did that and did this, and you're a good guy and you didn't do them. And I said, I married her. I mismanaged the marriage because I was a young beta male dumbass when I was 25 years old. Don't get married, you're 25. Fucking stupid. I didn't know that back then. Or I did partially know I was stupid. I mean, I could have moved in with her later. I could have moved in with her without getting legally married. I had so many options that I didn't choose. So the divorce was 100% my fault. Now, there's something else we're going to get to in a minute about how fault is not zero sum. I'll cover that in a second. Matter of fact, I'm going to cover that next. But you're going to want to tell me, look, I had this scenario and I didn't do anything wrong and this person did this to me and it wasn't my fault. And I will be able to tell you 14 reasons why it was your fault, even though it feels like it was that person's fault and you're an innocent little victim. I learned this at a young age with my dad, God bless him. My dad was a pretty good dad. He wasn't perfect, but he was a pretty good dad. And when I was a young man, I was 19 years old, something like that. Let me think a minute. 19, 20 years old? I don't remember. I need to take a drink. It was only an 8-month recession. Those are the numbers based on GDP. People did a lot worse for a lot longer than 8 months. But even if it was 8 months, that's when I moved out. And that's why I had to try to find a job living by myself in the middle of a recession. Am I perfect? No, but I wasn't a pussy and I didn't stay home and say, I can't afford to move out. I have to have a roommate. That's my point. I made it work. Am I perfect? No. Did I make a lot of mistakes? Yes, but I'm not a pussy. I did a whole thing about you could be flawed and not be a pussy. I talked about this a few weeks ago. What was I saying? Okay, I was like 19 or 20 years old. 21, I forget, I was a kid. And I owed my dad some money. I borrowed a few $1,000 from my dad. I don't remember why. Something stupid. It was dumb shit. And so I owed him some money. I promised to make payments for a few months to him. And I fell behind on my payments for whatever reason. I don't remember. This is like, almost 40 years ago. I don't remember these details. And my dad's all pissed off at me because he's an alpha male 1.0, or he was. So he's like, oh, you didn't pay me. And I said to him, like most normal dumb humans, thinking everything is not my fault, I said, but I can't afford to pay you $200. I don't make enoug money. I had a job. I don't make enough money. What do you want me? I can't afford it. What do you want me to do? I'm not out buying a bunch of shit. I mean, he literally points out in the parking lot where my really cool sports car is sitting in the parking lot. He's like, you don't have to drive that cool sports car. I was driving a pretty cool sports car. It was what was that car? Let's see. I forget which one because I went through a few of them. 1985 Nissan 300ZX, but like a souped up turbo one with the Knight Rider dashboard. It talked to you. Oh, that was such a fun car. Oh my God, I love that car. He points to that car. He's like, you don't have to drive that nice car. You could be driving a Honda Civic and you wouldn't have a car payment. You'd be very easily be able to pay me. And I went, and I thought for a minute, logically, I went, fuck, he's right. Fuck, he's right. This is all my fault. And I thought more about it. I said, there's 10 other things I've decided to do that made me unable to make these payments. How much you weigh is your fault. How much money you make right now is your fault. Your sexual life, whatever it is, if there is one, if it's non-existent, or if you have one but it sucks, or you have one and it's amazing, it's your fault. My sex life on a scale of 1 to 10 is an 11, 12. My fault. I've been working on it for a long time. Today, it's kind of on autopilot. My income is pretty goddamn good. My fault. I did that. Is it as high as it should be? No, because I spent 50% of my time on my woman life. So my income should be much higher. Talk about, there are people I know, including guys younger than me, at my level, who are making way more money than me. Their woman lives are terrible, or non-existent, or monogamous and married to a fat wife or something like that. So that's the difference. So I chose my fault, 50% of my life on my woman stuff and the other 50% on business. If I had chosen to spend 100% of my life on business, I'd make way more money by now. But I'd be sexless or monogamous, both of which I would want to jump off a cliff. Same thing. My weight, I'm overweight, 100% my fault. 100% my fault. 100% my fault is my weight. Now, can you say, and I've done a podcast, at least 2 podcasts about this, but Caleb, it's harder for certain people to lose weight than others because of genetics and because of psychological problems with food and upbringing and blah, 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 blah. Yes, I didn't say that certain things are harder for other people or certain things aren't harder for them. Is it harder for some guys to make a lot of money than other guys? Yes. Yes. I've said this before in Alpha Male 2.0. Between women and dating, so dating, money, and fitness, most guys, generally speaking, not everybody, tend to be naturally good at one of those 3 things. There are some guys who are naturally good at girls, right? There are. We all went to high school with those guys and we hated them, right? There are some guys who are naturally good at money and business and making money. It's easy for them. There are some guys who are naturally good at fitness. It's just fish to water. They do well. They can eat food and they work out. They get a 6-pack. They're naturally good at this stuff. And then most guys are naturally bad at one of those 3 things. So maybe you're naturally bad at money. So is it harder for you to make money than maybe someone like me who I'm good at making money? Sure. It's still 100% your fault. Is it harder for me to be skinny than some other people? Yes, I've talked about this on podcasts. The answer is yes. Yes. Psychological shit yes. But does that mean it's not my fault? Bullshit. It's 100% my fault. 100% my fault. My weight. 100%. 100%. So just because it's harder to achieve a result than someone else doesn't mean it's not your fault. There's all this debate and talk about, it's harder for black people than white guys to do X. It's harder for Hispanic guys to, okay, right? And you can also some conservatives make the reverse argument. It's easier for Asians than white people in college to do X. Okay, that is probably all accurate. Not all of it. A lot of it is accurate. Yes. Doesn't mean it's not your fucking fault. It's 100% your fucking fault. I've said this before. My son Josh is black. He's half black, but he looks black. Okay, he's black. And when he was young guy, I told him, I don't remember the exact words I used, but I said to him, Josh, as a black man living in the United States, this is before he left the United States, good for him. You've got two choices in life as a black guy living in a predominantly white culture. And I think I called them the Oprah path and the Jesse Jackson path, I think. This is dated, it's a long time ago. Josh is in his 30s now. This is when he was a little kid. Not little kid, but maybe he was 14 when I told him this. I forget. So I got you two choices as a black man living in the United States. You've got two options, bro. Okay? Option one, which I think I called the Jesse Jackson option. Oh, yeah. I said, option one is you go out in the world and you say, this isn't fair. White people are racist. It is harder for me as a black man to make the same amount of money as a white guy, which is true. They've done the studies on this. If you go on eBay and someone sells something and they hold it up in a camera or in a video or a picture and the hand is white and they duplicate the same thing and the hand is black people will make less money. So yes, that is true. If you're a black guy living in the United States or not white other than Asian, it probably is a percentage harder for you to make the same amount of money in this society. Yes, I don't know what that percentage, 10%, 20%, I don't know what it is. And I told him that too. Is it going to be harder for you to make the same amount of money as a black man as a white guy? Yes, it can be a little harder. So option one is you can say, that's bullshit. This is not fair. Where's my free stuff? Which a lot of black people choose and a lot of Hispanic people choose in the Western world. They hold their head out like this and say, God damn it, hurry up. It's not my fault. Racist assholes. So that's option one. And by the way, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Black people say that are not wrong. They're right. But that's option one. You're going to be happy. I teach long-term consistent happy. You're going to be happy doing that? So then I said, or you can choose the Oprah Winfrey path. Oprah Winfrey was born poor, in the ghetto. She was raped when she was 12. Horrible life. And she said, you know what? If it's going to be, and she was a woman, and she was black, and she was fat. And she says, I'm a black, fat woman, and I want to be successful, and it's going to be 40, 50, 60, 70% harder for me to do it. I got to work 40, 50, 60% more. So I guess I better get to work. And now she's a billionaire. I said, Josh, it's up to you. You can take responsibility. You can say, fuck you. Which one? Which one's going to make you long-term happy? Thank God he chose option two. Josh makes a lot of money. He lives a Five Flags lifestyle. Extremely happy and proud of him. I think about him a lot. Fantastic. My daughter is taking a little more time, but she's a girl and she's Gen Z and Josh is millennial. I have a millennial kid and a Gen Z kid. Isn't that weird? Anyway. Next thing. This is going to get me in trouble or could get me in trouble from left-wingers and women. But I'm being objective and rational as always. I'm keeping my emotion out of this. Fault is not zero sum. What does zero sum mean? If you don't know what zero sum means. Zero sum means there's a pizza on the table and we're both standing over there and there's 10 pieces and I take 6 pieces. That means you only get 4 pieces. So I take from you and that gives you less. That's called zero sum. That's what zero sum means. Okay. You want more details? Look it up. I didn't go to college. Thank God. Okay. Fault does not work this way. I will give an example. And a big part of this is when people on the internet discuss rape. Let's see if I'm going to get demonetized or have this video. I already am demonetized. I turned off the monetization. Let's see if this is going to get this video taken down. Hopefully not. I don't think so. I'm going to give you two scenarios. And again, I want you to be as objective. If you are a woman listening to this or a left-wing person listening to this, I want you to be calm the emotions, and I want you to be as objective and rational as possible. Okay? Okay? And frankly, if you're a hardcore red pill guy, you too. You need to calm the emotions and calm the defensiveness and calm the feminists are evil. Just take it down a notch and think rationally and objectively, which is very hard for Westerners today in a collapsing society. I'm going to give you two scenarios, two rape scenarios, okay? Scenario one, a woman is walking down the street in a crowded city street at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday on a sunny day. It's a little cold, so she's dressed up to her neck, big coat, and she's walking down the street going to an appointment. All of a sudden, some guy from an alley reaches out and grabs her, pulls her into a dark alley where no one is, holds her down, and rapes her, okay? That's scenario one. I'm going to give you now scenario two. Some of you know where I'm going with this. Scenario two. A woman late at night gets dressed, and she dresses up in a tight tank top with no bra. So her boobs are popping out of her tank top. And she dresses in short shorts where her butt cheeks are hanging out of the back. Okay? She chooses to dress like this. She goes with one of her girlfriends, who the girlfriend is a very irresponsible person who does lots of irresponsible things. So this woman chooses to go out with this girlfriend who's very responsible, does lots of irresponsible things. This girl with her irresponsible friend goes to a frat party at a college she has never been to, full of guys that she's never met, at about midnight on a Friday night. She chooses to do this, dressed like this. She goes to the frat party. She's in the frat party surrounded by a bunch of horny frat guys, okay, who are drinking alcohol. Next, she chooses to drink alcohol in this environment. She wasn't drinking before. She could have said no, but she chose to drink alcohol, okay? Next, she starts talking to a guy she's never met in her life. And he says, hey, you want to come out to my dorm, you and me? And she goes, okay. And she agrees to do this. She's never met him. And her friend, being irresponsible, says, oh, that's funny. He's cute. Hey, go ahead. She goes up to the dorm. He walks in. They're alone. He locks the door. He grabs her, he throws her down the ground, and he rapes her, and I mean like for real. She screams, no, 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 and he says, shut up, cunt, and he slaps her, rips her clothes off, and rapes her. Okay, so those are two scenarios. Now, I want you, again, focus, don't get emotional, don't get reactive. Objective and rational. Try to be like me. Scenario one, what percentage of that guy is responsible for what he did, the rape? What percentage? 100%. That guy should go to fucking jail. And in my opinion, he should go to prison, and he should be in the wing of the prison with the murderers. Rapists and murderers should be in the same wing, in my opinion. Very big trouble, and he should be there for a long, 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 long fucking time. If not for life, and I'm not kidding. Okay? Number one. Let's see. How do I do the order? Okay. What would you say is the percentage fault of the woman who got raped in scenario one? Most people, I think, would say, well, 0%. What does she do? She didn't do anything, right? She was dressed, and she was out in the city in the middle of the day. He reached out and grabbed her, 0%. Now, even then, I could talk about things like she chose to live in a very dangerous city with a high rape. We could get into the minutia if you wanted to, but for the moment, I'll go for that. 0%, fine. So in that case, it felt like zero sum. 0% him, 100% him, 0% her, right? You with me so far? Now, we're going over to scenario two. In that scenario two, what percentage of the guy's fault is the rape? What percent? Again, 100%. That guy should go to fucking prison for at least 20 years with the murderers. And hopefully he gets raped in jail too. I mean, not literally, but that's how I feel about this. That guy is 100% at fault. He should go to fucking jail for the rest of his life. Period. End of story. In scenario two, what percentage of fault does the woman have for that scenario? Now, you would think that fault is zero sum. Well, because it's 100%, she's 0% his fault. That is not how fault works. It's not how it works. She has to share, even though he's 100% at fault for his actions, and he needs to go to fucking jail for the rest of his life. Remember I said that. I'm about to say something some of you aren't going to like. What percentage of fault does she have for that scenario occurring? Some. It's not zero. And now I don't know what the exact number is, and we don't know. We could debate the exact number. Is she 10% at fault, 20%, 40%, 5%? I don't know. But she made a number of decisions to dress sexy. Now, does that mean, let me pause really quick, because here's what people say. Does she deserve to get raped because she dressed sexy? Is that what I'm saying? No. Deserve and fault are two different things, or at least they can be. She did not deserve to get raped. No, 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 no. Deserve and fault sometimes are the same thing. I'll talk about a scenario in a second if I remember it. And sometimes they are different. Sometimes you can have a percentage of fault and not deserve it. That happens a lot in life. That's how fault works. So she is not 0% at fault. She doesn't deserve it, but she chose to dress a certain way, hang out with a certain person, go to a certain environment, consume alcohol, then go to another very dangerous environment. And then this happened, which is 100% his fault and a percentage her fault. She cannot say, and no one can say rationally and objectively, this was 0% her fault. And if this was my daughter's 26. If my daughter experienced this, I would say the same thing. I would say, I want to kill that fucking guy. I want him to go to jail the rest of his life. He better not ever run into me because I'll fucking kill him. But I would also say, if my daughter sat here and said, I didn't do anything wrong, it wasn't my fault, I'd be like, well, sweetheart, actually, wait a second. You need to be rational and objective. How you were dressed this way. Now, thank God that my daughter is not reckless. She's an introvert. She's very smart. She doesn't do that stupid shit. Thank God. Thank God I have a smart daughter. Thank God. Because I know some men who have stupid daughters and reckless daughters and stupid sons and reckless sons. Do you understand? Fault is not zero sum. You can be at fault, or at least a percentage of fault. Everything in life is your fault, even though the other person who did that is 100% at fault on his side. Let's go back to the example of the roommate who stole $600 from you. Your roommate is 100% at fault. He is a goddamn thief and he should go to jail. Yes. If he literally stole $600 from you, fuck yeah, man. Does that mean it's 0% your fault? No. You're a dumbass who moved in with a thief. And you're in a scenario, you put yourself in a scenario where the money was available to be stolen and you had a roommate. You don't make it. Is it 100% your fault? No. Maybe it's 30%. Still your fault, motherfucker. You see how this works? Fault is not zero sum. Some scenarios it is just because it is, like scenario one I give. You could argue that that's 0 and 100. Sure, they happen, but those are actually pretty rare. So here's the other thing. I'm going to dig another deeper hole for myself with this rape thing. Most rapes, not all rapes. Most rapes, do they tend to be more like scenario one or tend to be more like scenario two? Can I repeat what I just said? Most rapes that occur in the real world, in the Western world, do they tend to be more like scenario one? Or do they tend to be more like scenario two? Tend to. I didn't say literally. What side of the scale they tend to be on? I think one of the statistics is that most rapes, and there's a lot of unreported stuff, right? So it's hard to get statistics, but most rapes are committed by, that women report, are committed by men they're already dating, like their boyfriends. I knew a woman once, worked with a woman, really great person. Love this person to death. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. So nothing against her. I worked with her. It was a work relationship many years ago. No, it's not Billy. It was many, many, many years ago. She's a great person. She would mention occasionally, well, I was raped. Well, and she kind of not bragged that she was raped, but she brought it up more than once. Well, I was raped. I was raped. I was raped. And finally, she said it again in conversation. We're talking about something. I said, okay, you know what? Tell me exactly what happened. Because I want to know if we're dealing with a scenario one or something a little more towards the scenario two. So she goes, well, my boyfriend. I said, here we go. So this is, wait, I said, stop. So your boyfriend raped you? You were dating? Yeah, he was my boyfriend. Okay. So now we're already in the zone of there's some fault here. Why were you dating a guy who did this? I have dated many women. I have never committed a violent act against any of them in my entire life because I don't do that because I'm not a violent person. If you're a woman, you probably shouldn't date guys who are violent and do violent because rape is an act of violence. You probably shouldn't do that. There are many women who have boyfriends and husbands and or just guys they're dating who they know are violent and they keep dating them anyway. Tell me that's 0% your fault when he hits you for the third time, fourth time, whatever. Anyway, so the scenario was, if I remember this right, they were having sex and he turned her over to do doggy style and he shoved it in her ass without asking. And she screamed in pain and said, no, no, no. And he kept going and finished. So he anally raped her that way. Okay. Is that her fault? No. But she was dating a guy who did that, who had the propensity to do that. Do you think if she was dating him for a year, she saw no red flags at all? This just came out of nowhere. You know, the odds of that are pretty low. Hollywood likes to portray these scenarios as, like, I'm thinking of two movies in particular where man and woman fall in love and the guy's great, the woman's great, and they get married, and the guy's great, the woman's great, and they get married. And then as soon as they're married, the guy transforms into a monster and starts treating her like shit and beating her up and raping her. You're like, wait a minute. That's not how it happens in real life. What happens in real life is he was like that all along, and the woman ignored it for a while because he's good looking or he has a big cock or whatever, or he's an alpha male or whatever. He's paying her, who knows? But then the red flags start showing up and she just ignores them. Yeah. Now, does that mean that it's her fault 100%? No, but fault is not zero sum. What else do I want to say about this? There's more I can say about this, but I'm going long here. I'm trying to get these live streams a little shorter. What about the ultra, because I'm going to get this question. Well, Caleb, what about the scenarios where it really isn't your fault? You are walking along the sidewalk and a fucking meteorite comes out of the sky and hits you in the head. Well, then it's not your fault, right? First of all, fraction of 1%. Just about every 99.999% of these scenarios you can give me. Well, I was in a car accident. Wasn't my fault. Wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault at all. You did literally nothing wrong. You were a perfect driver. You were literally perfect. Really? And again, I was hit by a drunk driver. Okay, I get that. Fine. You didn't see him coming? Well, Caleb, how dare you blame the victim? Maybe there are some scenarios where it is 0% your fault. Here's another quick story. I dated a woman years ago. This was, she was a sweetheart. I mentioned her on my blogs. She was the longest consistent FB I had ever had at that point. Now I've had some longer ones, but I think I have. I'll think about that for a minute. I think I have, yeah. I saw her for 7 years straight as an FB with no listen fitties and no breaks. Because she would get a boyfriend, and instead of not seeing me while she had a boyfriend, she was one of these weird women who kept seeing me because she liked me a lot. So she kept seeing me. And this was not sugar daddy. It was a real FB thing. Okay. 7 years. Great person. But she was a little dumb. a little off. A little dumb. Sweetheart. But not the smartest tool in the shed. But wonderful person. And I said, oh, you coming over tonight? She says, oh, I'm in the hospital. I said, you're in the hospital? What happened? She goes, a car hit me. I said, a car hit you? Were you like walk on the sidewalk and you jumped the sidewalk and what the fuck? Or did you run a crosswalk or what the fuck? She goes, no, it was just the parking lot at Walgreens. What? You were in the parking lot? So I talked to her about it after she was fine. She healed. She was okay. But we talked about it. I said, oh, explain this to me. You're in the parking lot? Yeah. Were you walking? No, she's standing there next to the sidewalk. You were standing, and it was broad daylight. You didn't see the car coming? Was the car already right next to you and then went, and no, it just drove into me from way across the parking lot. You didn't see the car coming? She didn't really have an answer. So again, she could have said, I got hit by a car. She didn't say this in defense of her, but she could have said, I got hit by a car. It's not my fault. Yeah, bitch. It was your fault, partially. You didn't see a fucking car coming in the middle of the day in a parking lot? You didn't run out of the way? Every scenario, 99.9, you could give me, I could find some things you did that contributed to the negative outcome, which means it's your fault. It could be partially your fault. That still counts. Now, what if it literally isn't your fault? Caleb, I was abused as a child. I was sexually abused when I was 5. That is 0% your fault. Yes, okay, you're right. Then it's up to you. It's 100% your fault on how you react to that as an adult, which means you're over the age of 18. So once you're over the age of 18, everything you do with your life, regardless of what occurred prior to your life, is your fault. Now, is it harder to be a happy, well-adjusted person if you were sexually molested multiple times when you were 5 years old? Yes, but what did I just say a few minutes ago? Just because it's harder doesn't mean it's not your fault. I saw an interview many years ago with Roseanne Barr. How old was Roseanne now? In her 70s? She was about 50. So this is about 25 years ago. I think she was like 50. We're thinking, God, you're 50. She was in this interview. She's 50, okay? And the reporter is asking her about her weight because Roseanne is fat, and she was very fat back then. She lost weight since then. And she talks about, your weight and, why you fat. And Roseanne goes, well, I'm fat because when I was 6 years old, my mom said this. And I remember just staring at the TV going, my God, you are an adult in your 50s and you're blaming your weight on something your mom said when you were 6? You're full of shit and you're a loser. Your weight, Roseanne, is 100% your fault. Is it harder for some people to stay skinny? Yes, tell me about it. Doesn't mean it's not your fault. Difficulty does not remove fault. Is it harder for Roseanne because of her background? And I also think she's mentally ill. Didn't she get hit by a car and she was in a insane asylum? Is it harder for her to get her shit together in some areas of her life than other people? Yes, it's still her fault. It's still her fault. Just like it's my fault I'm overweight. My fault. I can talk about how I have psychological problems with food that other people haven't. Fine. Still 100% my fault. So her weight's 100% her fault. So even though now, was she responsible for what her mom did or said when she was 6? No. But once you're 18, over 8, I'm not talking about under 18. Under 18, this doesn't apply. People under 18 don't have agency, so it's not their fault. So if you're under 18 and your life sucks, I agree that's not your fault. When you're 18, you're an adult. Guess what, bro? It's your fault. All of it. Even though it wasn't your fault when you were 6. We've all had shit happen when we were kids, teenagers, okay? Some of us more than others. I had shit happen, not a lot, but I had some. No one has, I have never met someone with a perfect childhood. I never met that person. If you know someone had a perfect childhood with nothing wrong, you let me know. I don't think that, maybe they exist somewhere. Shit, dude. Okay? Last thing. It's good that everything in your life is your fault. It's good. I'm not telling you something bad. I'm telling you something good. Because if it's your fault, you can fix it. If your weight or your income or your dating life was literally not your fault, you would be doomed. You would be damned. You'd be fucked because you couldn't do anything to fix it. It'd be like living in North Korea. You'd be fucked. But if it is your fault, guess what that means? You can fix it. So if your weight is 100% your fault, guess what? You can lose weight. It might be harder for you than other people, but you can. If your income is 100% your fault, guess what? You can make a lot more money than you're making right now. A lot more. You could. It's your fault, which is good. If your woman life sucks, and a lot of you have shitty woman life, if you're not getting laid at all because you're an incel, or you're busy with work, or you hate women because you've been watching too much red pill shit, or just as bad, if you're monogamous to some bitchy, angry girlfriend or wife and you're barely getting laid and you're scared to break up with her because you have one-itis, right? Or if you're single and you're trying to make it work and you can't, and that's all your fault, which means you can fix it. I fixed it. I was the monogamous, boring, beta male married guy married to a bitchy, angry wife. That was me. She was bitchy and she was angry. That's an objective statement. That's not an insult. If she was sitting right here, she wouldn't disagree. then she'd say, well, you, Caleb, did this. I would say, yes, you're right, I did. See, both at fault. But I was that guy, and I changed. Was it easy to change? No. No, it wasn't. Some of it was fun. Some of the process from going to beta male to successful alpha 2.0 my woman life, a dating level guru within 2 years. Some of that shit was fun. Some of it was a nightmare. Going from no money at age 18, being unable to put gas in my car, to getting a six-figure income by the time I was 27 in 1990s dollars, the 90s. Some of that was a pain in the ass, but some of it was a lot of fun. Going from that to where I am now financially, which is a lot more, some of it was hard. I'm going through some stuff right now. It's really hard. It's fun. It's challenging, but it's hard. And some of it was a nightmare, and some of it was fun. Some of it was great. So it's not all bad. You want this to be your fault. So when I say everything in your life is your fault, if you're thinking rationally, you should be like, oh, good. Instead of saying, no. If you're saying no, you're hurting yourself. Obama was wrong when he said, you have a factory, you didn't build that. Yeah, I did, motherfucker. I worked 80 hours a week for 20 years. I did build it. I had help, of course. But if I hadn't started that business, nothing would have happened. Well, if your employees said, yeah, but you could hire other employees. Wrong. And if you're a lefter, you'll say, well, you used the commons, you used roads, and you benefit from fire protection. Yeah, asshole, I pay money for that. And if you're an American, you pay the highest tax in the world for those services. I paid for those services. I don't live in America. I still pay for it. Everything in your life is your fault. Everything. And that's a good thing. As they say in these movie articles, and that's a good thing. And don't give me the exception to the rule, and don't give me the determinism, the nihilism, and don't give me, well, this person did it, and therefore it's not my fault. Fault is not zero sum. And don't give me the thing, well, when I was 6, if you're over the age of 18, you can choose to deal with that problem in any way you can. There's an old saying, it's true. Everyone who makes more money than you or has a better woman life than you or whatever, there are people who have a better income than you or better woman life than you or better physical fitness than you that started out worse than you. Truth. Fact. There are guys that make more money than me who start out way worse than I did. Way worse. Not in terms of finances, in terms of finances and personality and upbringing and all that shit. I had some advantages. I was born white. That's an advantage. I was born in a, lower middle class suburban neighborhood rather than being born in Africa or the hood. Okay. There are people who were, started way worse. I've never been addicted to drugs. Never done drugs. I know guys who make way more money than me who are hardcore fucking drug addicts, almost suicidal. So whatever, man, whatever excuse there are guys who get laid now who are uglier than you and more of a pussy than you and more scared of women than you and fatter than you or poorer than you. And it's your fault. And the good stuff in your life is also your fault. So you can feel proud of it. That's what gratitude comes from. Gratitude is, I'm glad I have this. I'm happy. This is awesome. And did you do it all yourself? No. But you were the catalyst, just like you were the catalyst for everything negative. Everything in my life is my fault, and everything bad is my fault, and everything good is my fault. Pretty cool. Which means I can change it. Okay, that's it. Let's get your questions. And I will try to hang out as long as I can here. See if I do this without my glasses. I think I can. Aging is not my fault, but I can choose to age gracefully, or I can choose to age like a tub of shit. I was just talking to someone the other day who never talked before on video. And I said, yeah, well, I'm an old man. I'm about 53. He's like, what the fuck? You're 53? Wait a minute. You're 53? Yeah. I can choose to look younger than my age, or I can choose to age like shit. My fault. Is Paraguay a good lifestyle? I can't answer that question because it depends on what lifestyle you like. If you love big high-tech cities, you'd hate Paraguay. If you like first world amenities and first world this and first world, you'd hate Paraguay. So it depends what you like. What's it like day to day for life for having small children? It's great for having kids. That's why so many people have kids there. And it's safe. Yeah, it's great. Thoughts on Andrew Tate getting aid from Trump and Elon Musk and putting pressure on the Romanian government regarding a situation. I didn't even know that happens because I don't follow the news or that kind of news. Now many liberals are freaking out as Trump does not fuck around. I have no thoughts on this. If Trump, I don't know if you're right or not. If Trump gave taxpayer money to Andrew Tate, fuck Trump. That's not the purpose of government. I don't know if that's true, though. Just broke up with my mono wife. Oh, wow. Okay. And moved out to convert to Alpha 2.0. Wow, that's great. How do I deal with the sadness and loneliness that accompanies this? You're going to be sad and lonely for a few months, and that is normal. I've coached lots of divorced guys going through this. I went through this. You need to just accept that it's going to be shitty for a few months. But, and I've talked about this in my blogs, my books, and this is a fact. You may not feel like this now, but you're going to feel like this soon. In a few months, you're going to be the happiest you've ever been in your entire life. And I'm not kidding. Scott Adams has talked about this when he got divorced. Right now, it's going to be miserable for a few months. And suddenly, when you turn shit around and when you get used to it, your new condition, and you start getting laid and doing whatever you want every morning instead of obeying the wife, you're going to be so happy you won't believe it. I remember that when I reached that point, it was like 4 months after my divorce. I was driving in my car on the way home, and I just started laughing out loud. I'm so happy. But for 3 months, I felt like shit. So just, it's something you go through. I'm fucking up. I'm inconsistent and not waking up early to market my business, even though I was doing it in the past, but I'm being lazy and not waking up early. Why? You're too comfortable. You're too comfortable. You need to lean into your pain. You need to get scared or get mad. And you're not. You're like, oh, it's okay. My life sucks, but it's not that bad. That's you. The biggest project of my life right now in my business life, I think I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this on the Freedom Fortress thing I did this weekend. I made the decision 2 weeks ago to first thing in the morning to immediately come out of bed after going to the bathroom, okay, and sitting at this desk and working on my main project for 3 hours straight before I take a shower, before I brush my teeth. And I don't like not having brush on my teeth and not taking it. I feel gross. No. Before I do anything else, I can't have any appointments the first 3 hours a day. I had recurring appointments. I pushed them all down. Business appointments and woman appointments. 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. I get 1 day off. 3 hours, and I set a timer, and I got to work for 3 hours. No breaks, no fucking around, 3 hours. And I'm forcing myself to do it because I want my goals. And I feel discomfort if I don't have them. And you're not there. Or maybe you're almost there, but you're not quite there. The other week, there was a survey that said around 50% of young men have never approached a woman or asked one out in person. I'm surprised it's that low, or that it should be higher. It should be 80%. Do you think women are happy about this? I don't think women care. I don't think women care either way. What did you take besides TRT? Do you do HCG? Yes. I don't do HCG anymore. Now I do encloamine. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. It's a pill instead of a shot. I also do vitamin B injections and take metformin and do a few things. I don't go crazy, but I do a few things. Trump wants to cut food stamps and funding for free lunches at school. Trump says a lot of things. I don't care what he says. Let's see what he does. Were you ever on food stamps? No, never. Or did you or your kids ever receive free lunch at school? No, never. You said you were poor. I have never in my entire life received 1 penny of any government funds. Period. End of story. Even when I was poor. I'm a libertarian. If I take any government money, that is stealing, and I have to live my philosophy. I'm a libertarian. I can't take any government money. I mentioned this back during the pandemic. During the pandemic, I didn't get stimmy checks, but for some reason I ended up getting a stimmy check for $600. I don't know why with my income. I guess because I take a salary for my business, which is pretty low, but I take distribution income, so it's based on the salary, I think. Anyway, I got a check for $600. I talked about this at the time. I took the $600 check, went down to my bank, deposited the check, pulled out my phone. As soon as the money was in my account, I donated it all to charity. All of it, all $600. It was in my account for about 2 minutes because that's blood money. I don't want it. So the answer is no. And I never will. We'll kill Social Security. First of all, Social Security will be bankrupt by the time I get that old. But if for some reason it's still around and I receive Social Security, I can't not receive it. It will go 100% to charity. 100%. I don't want any government money. That's blood money. It's taken from you at the point of a gun. The answer is fuck no, I do not. Does Dubai have a program like this? No, Dubai is not a welfare state. That's why I live here. There's a reason there's no taxes here. If you come to Dubai and you don't work, you starve to death or you go back home, which is how you're supposed to manage a country. How do you fix laziness that's stopping you from working on your business consistently? I already mentioned that earlier. Is it possible to transform a hooker into a sugar baby or eventually an FB with strong game? Could it be alpha 2.0 behavior? Anything in life is possible. Is it likely? No. Should you try it? No. That means you're not fucking enough girls. And why are you fucking hookers? If you're excited to turn a hooker into a sugar baby or FB, you are not fucking enough women and you have a problem. So don't do that. Your entire framing of the question is bad. In the United States, vehicle theft has gotten bad. Yes, crime rates are skyrocketing all over the US and the collapsing Western world. Why do you still live in the United States? How does Dubai deal with vehicle theft and crime? Well, we don't have that problem. The crime rate in Dubai is effectively 0%. It's like 1.2%. We don't have crime here. You can leave your purse or your wallet out in a mall, come back in an hour, it's still there. People don't commit crimes here, with rare exceptions. Are there some crime? Of course, there's crime everywhere. How does Dubai deal with crime? They kick your fucking ass. They send you right to fucking prison. And if you're a foreigner, they kick you out of the country and they block you from ever coming back. They're very good at that. They don't fuck around here in Dubai, which is good. Have you been threatened in the streets of Dubai with someone? No, there's no crime here. Why? That's why I moved here, because there's no crime. No, what the fuck? No. I've had a goal to have a client signed by March 31st, and I'm way behind schedule. Get to work, feel your pain, get into your pain, lean into your pain and discomfort. Instead of saying, I want a client, I want a client, I want a client, you say, why does my life suck right now by not having this client or not having these clients? Why does it suck? And get into the suck. 3 loudest cries. It's hard. It hurts. It's not fair. It's not fair is a big one. That's what I learned. When I was 19 years old in my first corporate job, because I didn't go to college, thank God. I went right in the corporate world. I was in a tech support department before they outsourced it to India. Okay. It's like 1991. I forget what this was. And they would give old computers to their employees, free computers, back when computers were expensive. And there was a list. You had a list of people who were in line to get the next computer. And there was a female supervisor. There were 5 supervisors, 4 men and 1 woman. And the woman supervisor would take women in the department and put their names at the top. So you'd be due a computer and suddenly some woman would get it because she's a girl. And I would go complain to my boss, who was a guy, and say, what the fuck? I was next in line. And then Joe is after me. And we're all, what? That's not fucking fair. Which is a terrible thing to say, but I was a young kid. I understand. And he looks at me and goes, life's not fair. And I was so angry that he said that to me. How dare you say that to me? And then after I thought about it for a while, I'm like, he's absolutely right. Especially when you're a goddamn employee. When you're a 9-to-5 employee, nothing's fair. You want to get fair? Start your own business. Then it's fair. If you work, you get paid a lot of money. If you work hard, you make a lot of money. If you don't work, you starve. That's fair. Being a 9-to-5 slave is completely unfair. If your wife is getting harassed, meaning someone is stalking her, we had that problem. We had a big Firefly had a stalker. Yeah. How would you react? Oh, you don't want to mess with my wives. Your wife lives in Arizona. Arizona is a gun-friendly state. How would you consider to get her a CCW? She had a license to carry in Oregon. She had a gun for a while. What did she do? She sold it? It was a long time ago. I think it was before I met her. I don't know if I should talk about this. There was a guy who was harassing her, and I solved that problem. I don't think I should talk about it publicly, but I solved that problem. You can fuck with me. I don't care. You fuck with my wife. You fuck with my kids. You better pray to God. Isn't what you teach a little but emotionally manipulative toward women? I still follow all you do and it works, but it makes me feel icky. When a woman goes on a first date with you, does she wear makeup? Is that manipulative or not? When a woman goes on a first date, does she wear a bra that makes her boobs look a little different, a little better? Is that manipulative? So women manipulate us. So we're not allowed to do anything manipulative on the other side. We're supposed to just take it. When women stop wearing makeup, stop wearing push-up bras, stop saying, oh yeah, I'll fuck you. Stop acting like they're really nice when they're not on the first date. When they stop doing those things, then we can stop doing all of our techniques. Number one. Number two, I don't lie. Nothing in Alpha Male 2.0 is about lying. Nothing. I do not teach lying. A lot of guys do, and I don't. I've never lied to a woman in my entire life, ever, since being Alpha 2.0. So the last 18 years, I have never lied to a woman. So I'm one of the most honest dating, I hate the word dating, whatever, dating coach, guru, teacher on the internet. You don't lie. And if a woman asks you directly, look, motherfucker, answer my question. Are you fucking other girls? And she won't, and you can't dodge, you can dodge the question. That's not lying. But you can't say no if the answer is yes. And if she says, I want a fucking answer, you say yes. There you go. Did you know the term horsepower is because it was really created by James Watt to compare the power of the steam engine with a horse, essentially allowing people to, okay, that's great. Thank you. What did you say to a girl that's your FB and keeps asking for a relationship, but you want to keep her for an FB forever? You don't talk about it. That's how I had that FB for 7 years. She kind of wanted a relationship. You don't talk about it. You say, I think you're great. I love spending time with you. And you leave it at that. You don't talk about it. Just that's it. You don't talk about it. What if she screams at you? Soft next. Instant soft next. Women can dump you whenever they want. That's what women are designed to do. So if a woman sticks around, she is deciding to stick around. She could dump your ass whenever she wants. All women, including your wife. Your wife, your girl, could dump you any fucking time she wants. And the prettier she is, the easier she can do it. But even if she's not pretty, she can do it. My Freedom Fortress book from Amazon arrived today. Looking forward to reading it. Did it have the correct cover, David W.? Because they fucked up the cover on the paperback. Did it come with the correct cover? Let me know. I'm really curious. They fucked up. The publisher fucked up. And the Kindle looks okay. And maybe they fixed it by now. I don't know. I found taking personal responsibility for everything to be very liberating. Yes, me too. Changed my life. Changed my life. Thoughts on the stimulus check Trump gave to Americans? What? Oh, what do you think? I'm a libertarian. Totally against it. In 2020, I got one and was happy. And was happy? You're for big government. You're a socialist. And most Trump supporters are. Did you receive a stimulus check? I already talked about this. Trump said he wants to send checks again to Americans because the savings, the spending cuts. Yeah, that's socialism. Yep. Trump and George W. Bush are fiscal socialists. Modern day Republicans and modern day right-wingers support fiscal socialists, not literal socialists, fiscal European style socialists. They love big government. That's why America's collapsing. Elon Musk runs the United States, not Trump. False. And Elon Musk is an immigrant. That's ironic. That is false. He's not running the United States. He is not. He has very little power. He can't make policy. I'm a young black man. Cool. Trump has ended the DEI program, and many women have been getting laid off because companies have rolled back their DEI policies. That first part is accurate. The second part is false. That is false. But men and women are getting laid off equally from the private sector. In the government, he's ended some DEI shit in the government. That's true. How do you protect with your OLTR as this? How do you protect your OLTR from this as women, regardless of race? LexisNexis, you're watching way too much news. It's poisoning your, brainwashing your fucking brain. It's turning your brain into mush. You need to stop watching all news for 30 days, okay? 30 days. You're not going to do this because you're fucked. LexisNexis, you need to stop watching all news for 30 days. News diet. You're consuming too much news, and it's warping your thought processes, okay? My OLTR is not going to be affected, and neither is yours, from anything Trump is doing with DEI. And the fact you think that, you're all fucked up. I will now only buy new cars because if I had to buy used, I'm afraid that people had sex, like you said, you had sex inside the car. If you say one more weird thing, I think I'm going to have to ban you. I think you're a troll. I don't like working with women because all they do is complain all the fucking time, even the supervisors. I've discussed this. It's not all women, but women have a higher propensity for whining at work. You're right. I've talked about this in blogs. That's factual. Yes. But it's not all. No. Does Billy complain to you? If so, how do you tolerate her? Billy complains sometimes, sure. But she doesn't complain any more than my male employees. My deal is this is a Caleb thing, not a global. This is just a Caleb thing. I'm not emotional and I'm rational. I don't get upset if someone in my company does something stupid or says something stupid, but everyone on my team gets upset if someone says something stupid or they get really mad and I got to come in and calm everyone down. I hate it, but that's how human beings are. I wish everyone was as rational and calm as me and Akam as better as me, but they're not. Most humans are emotional and they get worked up. And I'm like, it's all right. Take a deep breath. Yes, that's stupid. I will talk to him. It's okay. And that's not men or women. It's both. I've had that problem for 20 years in my companies. People are emotional and they're outcome dependent. They get worked up. And it's not just Billy, it's everybody. I've had a lot of people like that. I know you say general tariffs won't help the U.S. It will hurt the U.S. I'll talk about that in a second. But won't strategic tariffs help if we increase the price on goods the foreign country really needs to negotiate? I just watched a video from, I think his name is Gary the Economist, or The Economist Gary or something like that. Maybe some of you watched him. He's this UK economist, very smart guy, multi-millionaire because he gets it. He's predicted all these things that happened. Very good. It's one of the economists I watch and pay attention to. And he just did a video about why Trump will fail and why the Labour Party in the UK will fail. Because now we have Trump in the US running shit and the left-wing Labour Party in the UK running shit. He's like, on the left and the right, they will both fail. He goes in detail about how they will both fail. And one of the things he said about Trump was tariffs. He's like, look, and he's right about this. Very interesting point that I never thought of with tariffs. He goes, look, tariffs can work to protect your manufacturing base if you have them from day one and you form your country from day one, like South Korea, like Taiwan. They've had tariffs, but they've had tariffs since day one. Tariffs do not work if now in the United States, you don't effectively have a manufacturing sector in the United States because you've outsourced it all, and now you're going to have tariffs. What's going to happen is you will now just raise prices on shit that Americans can't make because they can't manufacture anything or very little things. You have to actually build up a manufacturing base first, then you can enact the tariffs. But problem one, that'll take 25 years. And Trump doesn't have 25 years, he has 4. Problem number 2, how do you build a manufacturing base if you haven't done the tariffs yet? It's a chicken and the egg thing. He goes, so Americans have just fucked themselves this tariff thing. If Trump's going to raise tariffs across the board, and he goes, he won't. He's going to fuck the economy. And he said, now the good news is Trump knows this and or his advisors know this. So he said, as usual, Trump will say he will do it. He'll do a little bit and then he won't, which is back what I've been saying about Trump since 2016. And I've been right. How's Asuncion for dating apps? Very bad. Online dating does not work very well in Asuncion at all. Sugar dad dating works a little because it's a tiny, tiny market and that's the way it goes. I know the population is massive, but it sounds like you made it work for you. I did, but I'm really good at referral game. Guys who go to Asuncion do day game and night game. That can work. Online dating is tough. And I've done some sugar daddy stuff, not in many years, but I'm really good at referral game. And referral game works great in South America. More aptly said, everything in your life is your responsibility. Yeah, but I like to say fault because it's usually your fault. Responsibility is that fraction, 1% of shut the apple near a 6. So fault is actually more accurate most of the time. What's your thoughts on the asteroid Apophis that has a more than 3% chance of hitting the Earth? You're wrong. I think it's about a 1% chance. And you need to watch my video on the 2% rule. Agree 100%. My life is amazing because I realized this little fact at age 14. I think there would be a lot less debate about this if we said everything in your life is responsibility. No, I'm not going to say that. Let me repeat my point about that. The vast 99.9% or so of shit that you don't like is your fault, not your responsibility. It's also your responsibility. The only stuff that is your responsibility that is 0% your fault is that fraction of 1% shit. And I'm not kidding. It's a fraction of 1% shit. So no, it is more accurate to say it's your fault because it is. Stop trying to weasel around this shit. And I don't care if people debate me. I'm right. Just like I was right about the collapse of the USA, just like I was right about monogamy not working, I'm right about all this controversial shit. And over time, people start agreeing with me. It takes a long time. You should have seen, I talk about how people got mad at me when I said long-term monogamy didn't work back in 2009, and now they don't argue with me. They don't even want to debate me anymore. I've had guys like Christian try to debate me and they bail out because they know. You should read the comments on the blog articles I posted in 2012. They're still there on my blogs. Go watch them. Go read them. When I started talking about America's collapsing and I'm getting the fuck out of here in a few years, read those comments. People thought I was insane. People said I was going through some kind of midlife crisis, that I had lost my mind. I was doing drugs. People just lost their shit. What the fuck? America's great. Do they say that now? No, because I was right. Am I right about everything? No, but I'm right about most shit where I'm very clear about this. Thank you for sharing life's lessons, Daddy Caleb. You're welcome. If problems are coming up in an OLTR and you being with other FB women, well, if she doesn't like that, you didn't screen very well for your OLTR. You didn't follow my rules. She says she can't handle it and hurts, but doesn't want to walk away still. How would you handle it? Let her walk away. You have 1 or 2 conversations. You do the best you can in terms of, hey, I will be as flexible as I can. If it still doesn't work, you have to end the relationship. And that means you didn't go through the qualification process that I teach. If you have an OLTR who has a serious problem where she's bitching you all the time about you're fucking other women, that's 100% your fault. I don't have that problem with Pink Firefly. I never have, because I went through the qualification process. You probably moved too quickly. I've been cold calling my niche for the last week, and I'm struggling to get many real conversations. Tons, 45 out of 54 hangups, not even declaring that it's a sales call. The people that aren't providing a coherent set of problems with presenting with the questions, what is the most annoying? Then this sounds like a terrible niche. I would switch the niche. If it's that hard and people are that assholes just to ask them what your biggest problem is, you're dealing with a hard niche. Sometimes, I don't know what your niche is. We found in Business Builder, like when you're dealing with doctors, it's very hard to get a hold of a doctor. It's really tough. So some niches are not good for research. And if you find, oh my God, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm making all these calls, bad niche, get a different niche. Because most niches are not this hard. Okay. I have a location independent income. Oh, I'm 32. I have location independent income. I've been dating casually and feel a little bit empty and nihilistic. You're probably on social media a lot, would be my guess. I'm struggling with the idea that everything is in decline. I have a feeling you're watching too much news, watching too much social media. Get off that bullshit and get into your life. I consume very little news. I consume very little social media. Some YouTube, and I read some articles. I don't dick around on X. I don't go to X. I don't go to Instagram. I don't do that shit. I focus on my life. That's why I'm happy. One of the reasons I'm happy. Too many of you guys are spending too much time on social media and news. Way too much. I can tell from the comments you guys are making. The song I Believe to My Soul by Monk Higgins is the original song that Kendrick Lamar copied in his song Not Like Us, which is #1 play. Okay, thanks. Caleb, do you feel empathy for the average person who is trapped in self-defeating systems? No, because it's your fault. If you're trapped in a system, get out. I was trapped in a system. I was trapped in a monogamous marriage. I got out. I was trapped in a 9-to-5 job. I got out. I was trapped in a collapsing country called the United States. I got out. I was trapped in these horrible systems. I left. No one is holding a gun to your head, Jay, and forcing you to stay in these systems. You are choosing to stay in these systems. Well, Caleb, I can't leave tomorrow. I didn't say you leave tomorrow or next week. In 6 months, you can. Make a 6-month plan. Get the fuck out of there. You're being a whiny bitch. Or any sympathy, pity in general for the world. I have sympathy and pity for children because it's not their fault. I said, if you're under 18, it's not your fault. I have sympathy for little kids who have to go through this crap. Yes, I hate it. I give a lot to a lot of charities who help children. That's my thing, children. I have sympathy for, I do not have sympathy for adults. You can leave the United States in 12 months. You can set up a profitable location independent business in 6 months, 12 months at the most. You can turn on your dating life in 4 months if you hit it hard. All of you, no matter how bad you think you have it, are a year away from a pretty damn good Alpha 2.0 life. You're making excuses. Any reasons for optimism besides your own personal happiness? Yes, I'm very optimistic about Dubai. I'm very optimistic about Paraguay. I'm very optimistic about Central Asia. I'm very optimistic about certain countries that are on the rise and doing things correctly, unlike the United States, and unlike the UK, and unlike Canada, and unlike Australia. Yes, I'm very excited about what's going on with Dubai. I've done a bunch of research on what's going to happen in Dubai by 2030. I mean, it's awesome. Some of it's not great, but most of it's awesome. It's awesome. Paraguay too. I'm very optimistic about certain pockets of the world that are going to do wonderful over the next 20, 30 years. And my life. Not optimistic about the USA. Get the fuck out. Do you think it's worth it to take some money out of my retirement to pay for a business builder? I would need more detail on your situation. I don't know. Do you make very little money? Are you unhappy with your life? Do you really want to make a change? If that's true, yes. If you're okay, you're making enough money to pay your bills and you live in Thailand or something, then no, it's up to you. I don't know your scenario. Caleb, your philosophy of everything in your life is your fault is probably the greatest philosophies. Well, thank you. It truly changed my life. This is great. I'm surprised this isn't mainstream. Instead, guys follow Tate's ideas. Most of Andrew Tate's ideas are good, and I agree with them. Most of them are good. There's a few that are psychotic and irrational, but most of them are good. These little clips about Andrew Tate, like, school trains you to be a 9-to-5 slave in the Matrix. That's true. As I've said, most of, 80% of what Andrew Tate says, I agree with. Sure. It's that 20% that's a problem, but, Same thing with fucking Jordan Peterson, the angriest guy on the internet. About 80% of what he says, I agree with. 20%, then he's a psycho tradcon right-winger, Is it good to visualize your fears or in the morning for strong motivation? Sure. Or at night? Sure. I talk about the Dickens pattern? Sure. Google the Dickens pattern by Tony Robbins. Google that. Yeah. Or is it bad to have a negative law of attraction effect? No, it's not bad. If you're lazy and not motivated, lean into your pain. One of the best things you can do. I've done it myself several times. I've told you, my big irrational fear that I've had since I was a teenager, because when I was a little kid, we were poor. And I saw poor people like working at McDonald's when they were in their 80s. My irrational fear, it's an irrational fear, but it's a fear in my head, is having no money in my old age. I am terrified. I'm irrationally terrified to be in my 70s, 80s, 90s and have no money. Oh, just saying it just gives me the heebie-jeebies. So I use that as motivation. How do you inform MLTRs and FBs if one has a positive STI test? That question makes no sense. If you have a positive STI test, you tell them. You tell everybody. You tell them when you fucked. If they have a positive, how do you inform them if they do? That doesn't make sense. I think you mean if you do. If you have a positive STI test, you tell every woman you fucked in the last few months. And fucking be more careful. I don't have STIs. I don't have STDs. How come because I'm responsible. So learn from your mistake and don't fucking do that again. And tell everybody, be honest. How do you take 100% fault without lowering your self-esteem? Because you can say, this is 100% my fault, and now I can turn it around. I, by myself, can turn this shit around just by making some decisions and taking right action. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. 2 years ago, when I stood on the scale and I saw this number going up because I was in Mexico eating a bunch of bad food, I said, okay, this is bad. This is my fault. I'm going to turn this shit around. And so far I have. I got ways to go. Lost a lot of weight. Because I can turn it around. You can turn it around. I checked out the relationship advice from your friend John Somnes, but it's almost the opposite of what you teach. Monogamy, no prenup, pay for everything, etc. Correct. His relationship advice is very different than mine. His dating advice is very similar. So his dating advice and my dating advice are almost not identical, but they're close. His relationship advice is very different. Yes. Yes. He and I have discussed it. Yeah. So if you want to be monogamous, go follow his stuff. It's fine. John's a good guy. Love John. The percentage of your life that you assume ownership of is the same percentage that you can aim to improve. Right? Good way of saying it. Very good way of saying it. Best country to lose your virginity for cheap. Philippines. I've heard that Paraguayan women are very boring and have very little personality. That's not true. But they're good of you if you want feminism and submissive Latina. That is also not true. Those are both wrong. There's some of that stuff. They're feminine. All women in the outside of the Western world are more feminine than Western women. Western women are the most masculine women. Are there lots of feminine, girly girls in the West? Yes, I married one. Yes. But so they're definitely more feminine. That's true. Submissive, they're Latina. Now, there are more mild Latinas. Latinas aren't the most submissive women on earth. I don't know. Go date some Latinas and tell me they're submissive. Are there some submissive women in Paraguay? Sure. My Paraguayan wife is a submissive. There's in Alpha Tupanel, there's dominant, independent, submissive. I don't mean sexually. I mean in terms of personality. So she's submissive, but there are a lot of Paraguayans who are not. Compared to LA, a Sunstone seemed decent for online dating. I was there for 1 month. It's not. It's not horrible, but it's not great. It's not great. I would love to invite John Somnes on to debate or discuss monogamy. That'll never happen because he would have to talk about aspects of his life I don't think he wants to talk about. Most people on the internet who discuss relationship advice are not like me. I tell you everything I'm doing with no filter. Most people aren't like that. So I should definitely have him on. We could bring that up, sure. Yeah, I should have him on. It's in the back of my head. Yeah. One of these days I'll have him on. He's fantastic. That'd be a high value discussion. All right, 5 minutes and I got to go. If I want to start PDM relationships, first of all, Frank, I don't think you qualify. I don't know who you are, but go back to the live stream I did with all the qualifications: high income, location dependent, long history of dating multiple women with a track record, older man. So I don't know if you qualify, but anyway, should I start with one PDM, focus on building a relationship with her for a while, just like you do with PF, and then add other PDMs? Yes. Or should I start with all 3 PDMs for a very start? No, one at a time. That's what I did. One at a time, one at a time. It's like starting a business. You don't start 3 businesses at once. You start one. You hit that hard for a year, 2 or 3. Then you put on maintenance mode, then you do the next one if you want. Okay. Same deal with PDMs. No. I've got 2 real PDMs. I have Pink Firefly United States, and I can't tell you her name. We got to figure out a name for her in Paraguay. They're locked in. I have a woman here in Dubai who maybe qualify. I don't know yet. And I have a backup to her if she doesn't qualify. So you can see how much time I'm taking with this. I'm taking my sweet ass time. I'm not in a rush. OLTR and PDM take a long time to qualify for. Long time. And I love these 2 girls here in Dubai. They're great. But I don't know if they qualify for PDM. It takes time. Take it slow. I know you've advised us to not date Russian women. However, what I've heard, if you're willing to deal with a little bit of drama, they make amazing wives. Thoughts? It's not a little bit of drama. It's a lot of drama and a lot of demands. So amazing wives. Yes, they're loyal. Russian women are very loyal. That's true. They probably won't divorce you. True. Accurate. A lot of drama, a lot of demands. So is that worth loyalty? In my world, no. If you want to be an alpha male 1.0 or a beta, sure, go ahead. I'm soft nexting my long distance MLTR and it feels like a breakup. Okay, I don't care how it feels. I'm working on getting new leads and watching your one-itis video. Good. I would like to see another video with more stories and info on that. On one-itis? Sure. Caleb, here is recommendation of a book you may like, Homo Deus. Homo Deus? Okay. What's it about? Thoughts of Albania as a main residency flag. Your son really likes it. My standard answer is if it's in Europe, I don't recommend it as a year-long residency flag. He likes it, but he doesn't live there. He lives in Mexico, right? Albania can be very cool, especially if you're a younger guy, under 35. If you're in your 50s, 60s, I wouldn't recommend Albania. But if you're in your 30s, 20s, like he is, yeah, Albania can, and the girls are pretty good. Yeah. And it's cheap and it's fun. Would I live there? No, it's in Europe. I'm not living anywhere in Europe, and neither does Josh. What are your thoughts about Dubai going cashless in 2026? Don't care. I'm a libertarian. I prefer cash. First of all, it's not going to go cashless in 2026. That's not going to happen. There's too much people using too much cash here. So that's not going to happen. But if it does, when it does, at some point, it will probably happen. It's a first world country. Don't care. I hate using cash personally. I prefer societies that allow cash for tax purposes. But here's the thing. There's no personal income tax in Dubai, so I don't care. If this was a normal Western country with 30, 40% income tax rates and 30, 40% corporate tax, and they said, okay, no more cash, fuck you, I'm gone. But there's no income taxes, so I don't care. Why does a man's wall happen around age 35? And what's the science behind it? I don't know the answer to that question. I just know it happens. I don't know why it happens. You and I could guess. I don't know what it is about 35. I don't know. I just know it happens. And how many years does it usually take for us to recover from it if we happen to hit it? Most men never recover. Look at all the red pill guys and old ex-PUA guys going back from 2006 to now who hit that wall and never recovered. Did Roosh recover? Did Neil Strauss recover? Did Mystery recover? Did Paul Janka recover? No, they never recovered. It's just the next part of your life and you're just, I was about to say fucked. Some of them are fucked. Some of them are okay. Some of them are fucked. You don't recover. Most guys don't recover. It's best to just make sure it doesn't happen. Be aware of it when it happens and don't go too far. Which means you don't go too far into monogamy. You don't go too far in the God pill. Those are the two traps for men over 35 or men who are at 35. I'm in love with my MLTR who's madly in love with me. That's cool, but has lied about her past, and it's depressing, feeling like it's hard to find honest, attractive women. Little white lies don't bother me. Depends on what she lied about and how often she lies. And if you're with a woman a long time, you pay very close attention to see how often she lies. Pink Firefly's never lied to me, but I have seen her lie to some people in her family once or twice, but it's like once or twice in 10 years. So it depends on what she lied about, how often she lies. If she lied about one thing that's not a big, that's a little detail from her past, that's the only time she's lied to you, and you've been with her for 2 years and you've been paying attention, fine. But if she's lying about all kinds of shit, you shouldn't be your MLTR. Caleb, when you moved back in with your family when you were younger, you spent 6 months reading business books, I believe. Was it worth it? What made you do that? No, that's not exactly right. I moved back. It wasn't 6 months. It was 3 months. And the reason I did it, I was 19. I moved back for 3 months to help save up for a down payment on my first piece of real estate. That's why I moved back. It was 3 months. I watched a lot of LA Law. I remember that. I read business books throughout that whole period. From age 17 to 24 or 5, I read tons of books. It wasn't during that period. No, the FB has had a positive STI, not the dude. Then I don't understand your question. How do you inform the FB that she had a positive test when she went and got tested? Your question makes no sense. Any good book you recommend for learning personal responsibility? Today's topic. There isn't one that specifically focuses on this, but The Unchained Man, my book, is number 1. Number 2 would be Harry Brown's book, How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, which my book is the spiritual successor to that book. He wrote that in the 70s. There's a lot of stuff in there about personal responsibility. Will you put up for purchase the training you did last Saturday? Probably not, but if I do, it'll be very expensive. It'll be like $1,000. So I might, but it'll be like $1,000 because I got to be cool to the people who paid to show up at that seminar. It was $147. I mean, I'm exact. Maybe it'd be $697. Yeah, that's where I could try it. We were trying out. See how many of you buy it at $697. Should the dude tell MLTRs and FBs if he was told? Okay, this is the same guy about the STD. Okay. Should the dude tell MLTRs and FBs if he was told by an FB that she had a? Okay, now you're explaining your question. Finally, dude. Slow boat sailing. Try to communicate a little better with your questions. Try not to waste my time with the questions are not formulated correctly. If she told by an FB that she had a positive STI test, easily curable, should he tell the other FBs and MLTRs? Well, here's the answer. You go get a blood test right now and see if you're positive. If you're not positive, don't tell anybody. If you're positive, yes, go get a fucking blood test. As soon as a woman tells you I have an STD, the very next day you should be down at the blood center getting a blood test so you can figure out if you have it too. That's a very dumb question. Get a blood test today or tomorrow. You wait 4 days, get the results, see what it says. If you're negative, you're fine. If you're positive, you got to tell everybody. And then if you're positive, you ask yourself, why was I such a dumbass? I better not do that again. I know you say not to move to Europe, but what about Russia? It's not a part of the EU, and you wouldn't have to worry about the Putin problem. I have to mention that. You could conceivably move to Russia. Yes, you could. You're going to have to date Russian women. Okay, problem there. Other than that problem, which is a big one, you could. Yeah, you could. You don't have to worry about Putin if you live in Russia. Yeah, you could. I do know of guys, Western guys, who moved to Moscow, and they think it's great. They like it. They tend to be very right-wing conservative guys. So if you're a left-wing liberal, you're a libertarian, you're probably not going to love it there, but... Bought some of John Somnet's content. Unlike you, Caleb, he tends to overpromise and underdeliver. Disappointing. I don't believe that. All right. Homo Deus is futurology trends and how society will likely be based in today's trends and technology, looking at human society in the past and how it may evolve in comparison. Came out like 2017. That's fine. The problem is AI has already changed all that. So if it was written in 2017, it's probably all wrong. Did you guys just hear the news about the quantum chip Microsoft just released? Holy fuck. If you guys went to the Freedom Fortress training I did on Saturday, Since that training, which we talked about AI a lot, didn't we? That was Saturday. Since Saturday, it's not Wednesday, we talked about quantum computers and qubits, right? Remember I talked about that? Those of you who went to that training, they did a whole thing on that. They just invented a goddamn qubit chip. Microsoft. This shit's going to happen so fucking fast. Yeah. All right. I'm going to let you guys go. Think about what I said today. I'm right about this. And if you're thinking rationally and objectively, that's how this works. Everything in your life is your fault and your responsibility. Fault. It's your fault. It's your fault, and that's good. Cool? Cool. All right. Have fun. Bye.